Hi, everybody. I'm Peachy Williams from the Freshman Funbox brand, and of course, College and Coins. And tonight we have a very special guest here. We have Carol Davies from College Bound Determination. Hi, Carol.
Hello, Peachy. How are you?
I am awesome. And I do apologize for all these glitches. You know, Facebook is very temperamental and territorial. So we're using StreamYard tonight. And I guess they didn't want us to do that. But you know, the devil is a liar. So here we are.
It's all good. I think all this technology and teleworking, I've been having issues with all the different platforms I've been using, from WebEx to Zoom. It's been something else. So it works when it's great. So I'm so glad to be seeing your face and talking with your Facebook members today.
Thank you so much. And we're glad to have you. So let's get into a couple of things. So you do a couple of things. Can you tell our audience what it is you do exactly?
Well, I wear two hats. I will let you know. I have been in higher education for 20 years. Worked at four institutions. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. The day after I graduated from college, I was working on the campus. Worked at our Black Cultural Center, worked in the Office of Admissions as assistant director. I left my wonderful state of North Carolina to go to Chicago, of all places, cold Chicago, and did a master's degree in higher education administration at Loyola in Chicago, while I was also working at Northwestern in their fraternity and sorority life office. Now, I'm not Greek, but I am definitely a friend of the fraternity sorority world. And left there to go to work at the University of Mary Washington. And then I have been at Purdue University, serving in a few roles. I've been at Purdue for 12 years, and I served as assistant dean of students, working with leadership development and programming, supporting students in their out of the classroom experience. And then I moved over to the main area, supporting students who were having challenges and were lonely, overwhelmed. And so it was a different experience for me. I, throughout my career, didn't have children. So when I would talk to parents, I was like, why are they calling my office? What's going on? And so I didn't understand all that it meant to be a parent. And also, we really don't talk a lot about the challenges that college students experience. And so you might see one or two isolated situations where someone might, take a long time to graduate. But in the last role I had, I got to see students on a regular basis who were having challenges on campus. And it opened up my eyes to a whole world that I wasn't privy to. And when I had my kids, it really helped me to empathize with parents, because all these kids and parents had done everything people had told them to do. Go to class, get involved, find scholarships, and bam, go to college. And it's going to be wonderful. And it was not happening for a lot of people. And so when I was on maternity leave with one of my daughters, who's now 3, I birthed College Bound Determination, because I felt like this was something that needed to be shared with parents and students so that they knew that there are some common mistakes that often happen with that transition from high school to college that can really save them time and money and a lot of stress. So out of that birth College Bound Determination, I still wear another hat on the campus, but also part-time entrepreneur. So that's me in a nutshell. Love working with students, working with parents, and I have a breadth of experiences throughout higher ed. And so I really see it from a lot of different lenses. A lot of times you get into a career and you see it only from maybe the admission side, or maybe from the student activity side, or from, academic advising. I've had an opportunity to see it from so many different sides so that I can best support the students that I work with. So it's been great.
Awesome. So you'll see me looking down from time to time because, of course, this platform is different. And I'm checking our Facebook group to see if we have any comments or questions. So you'll see me looking down from time to time. So please forgive me for that. So let's get into some of the things that people don't ask, or parents don't ask, or students don't even think about, especially during this COVID-19 time. So being a part of an educational institution, you have firsthand knowledge of things that are going on. So a lot of parents are talking about either keeping their students home and sending them to community colleges, or even going as far as giving them a gap year. So can you
Mhm.
tell our audience what a gap year is and why it may be beneficial, considering all the different changes that are coming up?
Sure. So a gap year is what happens when a student from high school graduates from high school and has been accepted to a university, but instead of enrolling at that university in August, like all of their peers, they will instead take a gap year, take that year off, and start in the next year. And oftentimes, individual students will decide to do this if they are really looking to find themselves, if they're not really sure of what they want to study, if they want to gain a little bit of maturity, because, yeah, college is a different world. So if they
Yes,
know that
it is.
I'm not ready mentally, to be away and on my own, I need to take some time. Some students are just burnt out, going from, kindergarten, and I have my daughter who is about to graduate from pre-K, and, we're all, study your, let's learn your ABCs, and you kind of just keep that going from first to 12th grade. And especially if you're a high achiever, and you're just looking, you've always been maintaining those A's, and you're Miss this or Mr. that, it can be exhausting. And students can say, families can say, you know what, you seem a little burnt out. Let's take a little pause. And so you often find it with people who have the means to do that, where the family will say, hey, let me give you a year to go, backtrack across Europe or something along those lines. There may be the opportunity for students to actually work to save money for college. And so there are a lot of different reasons why one would take advantage of a gap year. But I will say that you have to really look at your institution, because it's not guaranteed. You have to petition for that gap year. And some institutions have specific criteria of what you should be doing in that gap year. So it should be something educational. Maybe you're serving in the military or something like that. Maybe you might even have a health condition that requires you to sit out for a year. I will say that there are some institutions, and since you mentioned COVID-19 is not a reason to take a gap year. So I just want
What? Oh my
to
goodness, that's crazy.
not yes. So just be privy to that. Look on their website, look at the policy. It's all there. Just whatever institution you're looking for, Google your institution and gap year and see if a policy pops up. Every institution is different. Some are flexible, some are not. So just don't think you hear this term gap year and think everybody can take it, because again, it has to be approved. It has to follow certain criteria for that institution. So just be privy to that. And I will say another reason why students will want to take a gap year might not really be beneficial in this particular season. And so what I mean is, a lot of times students are taking gap years to do an internship because they're like, I'm not really sure what I want to study. So I'm going to do an internship, job shadow or something like that, to have more clarity about what I want to study, right? Or they're
Right.
saying, I want to work, right? And save up some money for that tuition and fees. They also may want to travel, like I mentioned, backtracking across Europe. Well, all three of those reasons are not really going to work for you right now with COVID-19, right? So there's no traveling right now. There's no traveling. You should not be traveling. Let me just tell you that. You should not be traveling, right? We have 65 million, I think, people who are unemployed right now,
Right.
are laying individuals off. So if you're looking to work, the chances of that happening is not very high right now. So those are some things to consider as well. And another thing, a lot of institutions really look strongly at that senior year courses, right? We always talk about the rigor of courses students should be taking in their senior year. It's not that admissions officers are saying we want them to be the most stressed out and take all the advanced placement and international baccalaureate and honors programs just to, stress them out. We want them to be the most academically prepared for the rigor of college. And it is a different world. And even those students who take advanced placement, they sometimes don't do as well as they anticipate. And so the challenge that you might have taking that gap year is you're not exactly as academically prepared because you've lost an academic year, right? So unless you're doing something to continually keep learning, maybe there's some massive online courses that you can take. I love Coursera, that you could just continue. I love it. I'm enrolled in a couple of classes myself. I need to catch up. But unless you're doing something along those lines, you can really lose a lot of what you have worked up to that senior year that you had in high school. So these are all things that people need to weigh for themselves. It's all an individual decision, but I think what I've laid out, should give people enough information to make a sound decision for themselves. I hope.
Well, that's amazing. I know that didn't Malia Obama take a gap year before she went away to school?
Yes, she did. She took a gap year right before she got to Harvard. I'm sure she did a lot of traveling with her mom. Yeah, she did. And there are a number of individual, students who will take a gap year. But for the vast majority of students, they will, matriculate on from high school to college. That's more the traditional route.
Okay. So, I mean, that's great information to know, especially about a gap year, because a lot of parents are kind of on the fence about what to do because there are some universities that are saying, yes, we're definitely going to be open. Then you have other universities saying we're not announcing it until July. And then even if we open the university, it may not be open to all students. We may do hybrid models. So universities with nursing or medical, where you have to be on campus, those are the schools that may open to those students, but then everything else, taken online, year or semester. And so with these times being so tricky, that's a good thing to consider, maybe doing a gap year, especially if your student is not as mature as you may want them to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But I think there are ways to gain that maturity in this time span before classes start. And a lot of times people talk about, I want to find myself. There are a lot of ways, assessments, for instance. I'm a Gallup Clifton Strengths coach. And so I love working with students and helping them to identify what their strengths are. And so often when we do that, they're like, man, I wish I had done this earlier. I wish I had known this. And it's all stuff that's, when they take the assessment, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so true to who I am. This is weird. They always say, like, this is weird. And how do they know this? And was somebody following me? So a lot of assessments can really help you speed up that process of learning more about your strengths and what career path might be best suited for success for you. But yeah, as you were mentioning,
what type of assessments do you recommend?
Well, like I said, I'm a Gallup girl. So Clifton Strengths, and they actually have one for students. So Clifton Strengths for students is the assessment that I use with our college students. We have about 600 universities across the country who use that assessment to develop their students. So for my institution, all incoming first year students take the assessment, and throughout our orientation and throughout various programming on the campus, we are working with students to help them hone in on what their strengths are, how to work with others, how to use it to understand yourself and articulate yourself when you're looking for a job and searching for internships. So for me, that is my favorite one. But people may be familiar with the Myers-Briggs type inventory, MBTI. That's a great assessment as well. There's an assessment called the DISC, DISC. There is an assessment called True Colors that I absolutely love. I've done that with some student leaders, and it was based on different colors. And so throughout the semester, students were saying things like, "Oh, you're green. That's why you do X, Y, and Z." All these assessments are great ways for you to learn about yourself, but it also gives people the opportunity to learn about you and how you think and how you see the world and what the lens that you see the world, so that there's a little bit more grace when you're saying or doing something, you're not as upset, right? So I'm a hyper empathetic person, and so that was a challenge in the office, because there's like, oh, is Kara going to be able to be objective and not hug these students when they really need to be challenged, and have that
Everybody needs
problem.
a hug. Everybody needs a hug from time to time.
Absolutely, absolutely. But they just saw me as someone who was very empathetic, and might have thought that I was a little soft on students. And I hold students accountable for what they have done, but I do it in a nice way so that they are learning from their mistakes, because we all make mistakes, and we don't need people feeling worse about themselves than they already have. So again, all these assessments are really great, and many employers use it as well. So I mentioned the 600 colleges. About 92%, I believe, of Fortune 500 companies also use that Gallup Strengths Assessment. So if you're interviewing for a job and the company is a Gallup-based company, and you start using those buzzwords, that's really something that's impressive to them. But absolutely, those are things that you can do. You don't have to go searching across the world. To be introspective. Take some time to just think about what are your values. What are your passions? What impact you're trying to make, and to make those decisions for the student. A lot of times, parents, and like I said, I used to be like so hard on parents, but a lot of times parents, they just want the best for their students, and so they may say. Have students who said that they were kind of forced to be engineers when their heart really wanted them. They really wanted to be educators, but since educators don't make money, their parents were trying to steer them towards the career that made money. And so that's a parent's thing, right? You want your kid to do better than you did, but at the same time, your kid is going to be miserable if their grades are not going to be as strong as they could be if they were studying something that they were passionate about. Then that's a conversation that you need to have with your student so that they can feel better supported. I will say that a lot of students don't feel as supported by their parents because they want to do things their parents don't think will get them money. And it's hard to say there's more important things than money, but if you have a student who is really struggling with life decisions, and a good chunk of that stress is trying to appease other people's expectations, then you really need to let that student live for themselves. Let them make their own life choices. You've done the best you can as parents to give them all the resources that you possibly can so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. We got to trust that. We got to trust that. Because when we do that, sometimes the situation's not as great as it could be.
Right, right. So you also talk about summer melt and what students and parents should be doing right now during summer melt. So can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so interesting. So right now, May 1st, I was so excited. I'm looking at my timeline. I'm seeing all these students announcing where they're going to go off to college.
Yes.
I absolutely loved it. I mean, it was like the highlight of the last couple of weeks for me, because I am team college. Wherever you're going to go, I am team there, right? But I know that about 10 to 20% of students who say they're going to enroll at an institution actually don't end up enrolling in that fall. And so when I saw those numbers, I was just like, well, what is the disconnect? What is going on? And so a lot of times there's some dots that need to be dotted and some T's that need to be crossed. That doesn't happen. So you need to be making sure that you are checking your email. That once students have been admitted, they then get a university email account. students, it's now the student's job. The student needs to be checking their email very frequently. And we know that they're going to get flooded with a lot of different emails, but it really is important that they check through and sift through all messages so that they don't miss time sensitive information. And so oftentimes that happens, don't respond to deadlines in the way that they're supposed to, and opportunities. So definitely need to be checking your email. Feeling a sense of disconnection. So imagine you've been in the same school since kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and you've established these relationships. And the idea that you might have to start all over can be a little frightening for some individuals. So what you can be doing now is just connecting with as many people as you can at your new institution. This could be students that you might have met, faculty, staff, even alumni. Just having that sense of connection with someone at the institution will really make you feel like you belong to that community now. And so that definitely will make a big difference. The summer melt issue is such a big one that Bill and Melinda Gates actually have helped and founded different initiatives to help and prevent the numbers of individuals who anticipated going to college who end up not going. So it's a really big thing, and especially for low income first generation students. This is where we start to see some of those numbers dropping. So we want to make sure that they are definitely communicating with the institution, being mindful of all the different deadlines that are happening. Gap between high school and college, so making sure that you have your transcripts, because you've been admitted, but you still need to have your final transcripts so that they can review, the admissions office can do their final review, make sure you didn't take too much. And of course, right now is kind of, it's just such a terrible way to have a semester end, right? But making sure that that happens. There are a lot of immunization records that need to be to happen before you can enroll as well. Making sure that you're doing, going to the doctor and getting all the records updated so that the institution can have that, because that can prevent students from being able to enroll as well. We want to make sure that especially right now, everyone is up to date with all their immunization shots.
Absolutely. And that's very important to think about, the summer melt, because a lot of students, what I'm finding is that students will, as you said, they kind of lose the connection and they feel like they don't want to go anymore, or they start getting separation anxiety when it's almost time to go. As the time starts winding down, it's like, oh my goodness, who's going to wash my clothes? Or I'm going to miss my mom, or I'm going to miss my dad. And, I don't want to do all this packing. Are they really going to leave me alone? How long are you going to stay on campus when you guys drop me off? Those types of things. And if they're not,
I will tell you that I'd rather that happen before classes start, because I worked with students who would get to campus, move into their residence hall, not even take the first day of classes, and are just like, I need to go home.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But it happens.
It boggles my mind. What I think really needs to happen is, and what's interesting is that we on the administrator side, we typically, COVID-19 just kind of threw a wrench in everything. We can typically anticipate everything that's going to happen for our college students at any moment of time. So we know that students are going to experience homesickness. If they have relationships, long distance relationships, that's going to be a challenge for them. The students don't know that. And I feel like if they were empowered with this information to say, you know what, you are going to feel that you can't leave home, that this is going to be really difficult, and you're going to want to stay. You're going to want to go back home. And then for the parents, what used to frustrate me, again, before I had kids, was the parents that would sit there and just be like, baby, you need to come home. And I'm like, no, this what you planned for? What are you talking about?
Right. Can I spend my money? What are you doing?
Well, it was more so that they just missed their kid. And I get it now. You see your baby every single day from the moment they were born. Peachy's like, no.
Helicopter parents.
You know what? I used to be one of them people. I cannot do that anymore because my empathy level is so high. So, for instance, I was telling you how my daughter is going to graduate from pre-K, right? So I have a 3-year-old too, and she was switching classes, and she wasn't used to the teacher. So I was dropping her off to go to work, but she would not stop crying. She did not want me to like leave, and I was like, looking around, I'm like, wait a minute, who are these kids? It wasn't the kids from her last class. It wasn't the teacher. So I was just like, I went to the front desk. I heard her crying the whole way to the front desk. And I'm just bawling my eyes out. I'm like,
I can imagine.
I'm just like, she's crying and she doesn't. I thought you guys usually put kids in other, just doing just ugly cry. Luckily, her teacher was there because there was the teacher, the main teacher was coming into the classroom, and she was at the front desk when we go to the classroom. She said, I'm going to be her teacher for today. Let me take your cell phone number. I will give you an update on how she's doing throughout the day. And I was like, oh my gosh, her name was Carol too. I was just like, oh my God, Carol, thank you so much. So, of course, she sends me these text messages, these pictures, and the girl is fine, right?
Of course.
Like by the time I got to my car, she was good to go, right? So I equate that to a parent, and I used to take all parent calls, like in the Dean Student's office where I work. A parent will call after they have talked to their child who has complained to them about any number of things, and they're crying and wailing, right? Well, there's no way for us as an institution to text them and say, you know what, they cried to you, but they are good to go right now. They up there eating pizza. They're in the gym playing ball or something like that. We can't do that because of FERPA, right? And so it just, again, like I just kept getting hit in the gut. So I understand our helicopter parents. There's a way to do it, right? There's a way to be, supportive and engage in your child's life where it doesn't stunt their growth. But I understand the motive.
I understand. I still remember when, all my kids went to kindergarten and I cried and cried and cried. I remember when I dropped my daughter off at college and I tried to hold back the tears, but when I got around the corner, I had to pull the car over and I could not stop crying.
I'm gonna be a mess.
But I noticed that over time, she started calling me every day. Like we would talk every day, right? And it was something that she initiated. It was something that she felt she needed to do to feel closer to me. So I appreciate her for that. And I think a lot of parents and students become closer, especially during those freshman year times, especially the first month or two, because they're still trying to adjust. And that usually what happens. But then you have the extreme parent who they just want to move to the same city where their kid is because they can't imagine them being away,
Yep. And there have been times when parents didn't hear from their kids. They sent them a text message or called them, and the student is busy, sleep, in an exam, something. And the parents would blow up our office phone and demand for us to find their child. And so we have to do that.
Or get on a plane and come visit to see what's going on, or get in a car 5 to 6 hours. Yeah,
we just need to take a breath, and and what's interesting, what you just mentioned, that's we talk about the generations of kids. We study them pretty well and have adapted to every generation that has come to college. So right now we're with the generation iGen or Generation Z.
Yeah, Gen Z.
We start to see students around the millennial generation talking to their parents a lot more. So this whole helicopter thing kind of started with the millennials, because when I was college, we really didn't talk to our parents as often as college students do today. Like we called on Sundays because AT&T rates were low, and that's it. There wasn't a whole bunch of everyday text and call. So students and parents are much more connected today. And so as long as there's a balance, that's a healthy thing. Sometimes there's a bit of imbalance, and that can be not beneficial for the parent or the kids.
I agree. I agree. So let's talk about those students who have enrolled, but they haven't finished any of their paperwork. There are a lot of holes in their entire application process. And what do they need to do, even if school doesn't open? What do they need to do right now to kind of push and move things along?
I definitely, like I just said, just continue to keep up to date with the emails. Most will have a portal for students to do some check boxes and some tasks for them to complete. They should be looking at that very frequently. If there's any, especially, so the admissions office had been the primary contact office with students. So just making sure that everything that they requested, and is typically the final grades and any transcripts from universities for college credit, need to be sent over. Those things need to be completed because that will help you when you're going to be doing your online registration for classes. So that definitely is one of the things, just kind of wrapping up everything that you need to do from the admissions office. So if you have a portal from the admissions office and you can check and see what information they have and what information they don't have, you can even call, even though universities are not open, we're still working. So teleworking is what we're doing right now. So they can call or email and just kind of make sure that they have everything that they need to just wrap up that admissions piece, because now you're going to move on to orientation. And during orientation, you'll start doing registration for classes. So those things are very, very important to make sure that you're on the ball, that you're not missing the boat. It's really important to, like, I stress deadlines, because I know when I was in school, and I still have issues with procrastination, but putting things in your calendar of when things are due will really work to advantage. Because a lot of times, if you do things late, one, that can mean money, and two, you could really be missing out on just opportunities. So again, just keeping up with what is due, when is it due, because all of it is trying to help you onboard successfully into the institution. So we mentioned a little bit where institutions are not sure whether they're going to, be all online or if they're going to be meeting in person. It's May 7th right now. There's so much that's going to be happening, and so much more information that we'll know in the next month or two. So I would just encourage people to be patient. If you are, committing to an institution, commit wholeheartedly. Follow their social media pages. Make sure you're getting their emails. I know for my institution, we're getting regular messages to just give us updates about what's going on. And so that's very reassuring, because, no one really knows, but I find reassurance knowing that there's a game plan happening. So right now, that's all we can do is just kind of, wait and see. And institutions are planning for, there's a plan A, there's a plan B. And we're hoping that all the students who say that they're going to commit to being part of that university family, however they decide to, function as a family online or in person, that you are committed for the long haul. Because when you decide on an institution, that's a relationship.
Right, you're married.
It's a yeah. I mean, I love my institution as if it's a person. Like, I cry when I hear my alma mater played. They've been doing such beautiful videos. I mean, I love that place. But I also have loved all the places I've worked, because it just kind of gets into your blood. Like, colleges are just so, full of that spirit. And even though we're not together as an institution, We are getting emails from each other. We're doing these these Zoom meetings and all of that. So we're still feeling connected. And we know we're all in this together. We know that this is just not ideal. This is just nothing anybody planned for. I studied higher education administration. There was not a chapter in any book that I read that talked about how to handle a pandemic in a higher ed environment. So we're all just, trying to make the best decisions that we can. And I know that safety is going to take precedent in making these decisions. I know some people feel like, oh, they're just out for the money. I don't think that will be that's not the sense I get.
Well, it's interesting that you say
decisions.
That because let's back up. But before I get into that, what's your website for College Bound Determination?
You can go to carolbendavies.com. So my full name.com. It'll also redirect to College Bound Determination. And if you have a question, we can definitely just send me a private message. Definitely would love to keep in touch and just answer any questions that you may have. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's get into the parents who are saying that universities need to open. While we do know that safety is paramount, there are a lot of issues surrounding the dorms and the social distancing and things of that nature. But then, I'm in a couple of college groups. And so you hear the parents saying, well, they need to open because I need my kid away from here. So if I have to go get an apartment, I'll do that. But when you're talking about safety, especially if it's a second wave that comes through, how are you expected to handle that? Especially when you have parents saying, no, my student needs to go to school. This is not fair that they're going to miss their freshman year. But then we're in the middle of a pandemic. How does that work? And how does the safety piece come together?
I really think people need to remember that we are in the pandemic, that we are losing thousands of people a day. And this is a privilege, this idea of going off to college. Like that's something that we, not everybody has that opportunity. And people are really focusing on some life-changing things going on in their lives, where your focus of having your kid go out into the world to get out your house versus someone who is, has pre-existing conditions and is deathly afraid of getting COVID-19. I've had people who have died from COVID-19. I've seen posts where people have lost both their parents within days of each other to this disease. So I think perspective is just really important to be had right now. I cannot fathom, I don't think it's really hit me how many people we have lost in just this short time span. And we haven't hit a second.
And growing.
And there's not a lot of testing going on. So I would say that if you're in a situation where you can be assured, and that most of the institutions that are planning to open are putting these measures in place, where there's going to be ample testing available, where they're planning for where quarantine is going to happen, where they're talking about socially distancing in a way that is going to be safe for the students. So when we talk about the hybrid model, maybe everybody is not going to be in class all at one time, or you may meet on Monday, Wednesday, but not on Friday or something, whatever the class schedule might be. All of those things are going to have to happen for it to be a safe situation. You also have to take into consideration the size of campuses. So, it might be easier to open your campus if you have 4,000 students. It may not be as easy to do it if you have more than that. And if you have more than that, then measures need to be put in place. And some of those large institutions, again, have the capacity to do that. So I would hope that anyone would look at these decisions being made, and let the institutions take the time that they need to think through it. And I think that's what's happening right now, and why so many decisions are being made so early. Because I think when you can take your time to have a thoughtful decision rather than making a rash decision on something, I'd rather you have the time to really have thought through all of the what ifs. How is this going to work? As opposed to we wait too late into the process, and we're panicking and making decisions, and things can be missed. So that I mean, I can understand. Well,
I get it completely. I get it, and
but safety first, right? So
safety first, definitely safety first.
To ensure yeah, they're going to do it. It just needs to be, safe. And right now we're already seeing that places that opened up too soon are seeing, some spikes in cases. So absolutely. I really want people to be smart and be safe, be empathetic and kind, and patient.
That's good advice that we all need to take, because some people are having cabin fever, and just when you see certain things, it's like these people aren't listening. And we have so many privileges here in the United States, and we're spoiled as a people. And because of that, we want what we want when we want it. It's the right now, me first syndrome that we're going through. Whereas years and years and years ago, you couldn't go outside, there was no movie theaters or, big grocery stores or malls or anything of that nature, not the internet or anything. And those people made it. So I think to a certain extent, we have to change our mindset so that everybody can get through this and we can remain safe and move forward.
Yeah.
So you told us about your background, but you didn't tell us more about College Bound Determination. So what does College Bound Determination do?
Well, we are a coaching and consulting firm. So I consult parents so that they can be better prepared to help their students along the college journey. And I say college journey because what typically happens is, as we've seen, May 1st, students all excited about getting into college, and then that's it, right? If we were planning for the fall, the conversations that have been all stressed out about getting into college and what are my scores and stressing out about where I'm going to go, and then the highlight of where I'm actually going to enroll, the conversation then switches to, because I've been watching on the Facebook pages, switches to, oh, J.C. Penney's and Sears has bed sheets on sale for your dorm room.
Right.
And I'm just like, y'all, commencement means beginning. It's not the end. It means beginning. So what I do is try to help students plan for the entire journey, not just getting in, but graduating. We have very low graduation rates at institutions. When you talk about colleges, we often hear about the 6-year graduation rate, not the 4-year graduation rate. And parents are planning for 4 years, financially, mentally, and everything. They're planning for 4 years. And what I try to do through College Bound Determination is help students to navigate their college journey so that they save time, money, and stress, utilizing the experience that I've had in higher education with the breadth and depth of all the experiences I've had to help students avoid the very common mistakes that trip students up and prevents them from being as successful as they intend and hope to be. And so I have one-on-one coaching. I have group coaching. I'm going to be launching a group coaching program to help students kind of plan for the first academic year. So that's going to be really exciting. So send me a DM if you're interested in that. So we're going to get started in July and go all the way into the end of the year, because that first year makes such a big difference. I have had students who they had all the hype, all the hope that they were going to have a great year. And then that transition, no one told them was going to be hard. And they ended up on academic probation, or they ended up being academically dropped. And the conversations that I've had were just heartbreaking to me. And so again, I use all of the tips and strategies that I worked with current college students, and just work with students, regardless of where they are, to help best navigate wherever they are, so that they are taking full advantage of the resources. That's a challenge. Students are paying for these resources they don't use.
They don't use
Mindsets that you need to have. I do the Gallup strengths coaching with the students so that they know what their top 5 strengths are and how they can use that to study, even select organizations, talk about what their strengths are for job interviews. We talk about how to study. So I'm really excited about working with a group of students, for a good year, so that they just maximize that first semester, that first academic year, since it's so crucial.
That's amazing. And the program sounds like it's going to be amazing. So, of course, we're going to give out more information on that in the group. So,
Thank
is there
you.
any parting wishes you want to say to our audience now that we've kind of navigated through this system? Thank goodness we didn't get cut off.
This is great. First time using StreamYard. I love it. This is very cool.
Yes,
Parting word, just be patient, with yourself. Know that this is not the end, it's just the beginning. That there are resources and people who are available who can help you navigate this process. Have clear expectations of what you expect out of your student, how often you want to talk to each other, have that sex talk, have that financial management talk, have that talk about laundry, have those talks. Because what I didn't mention is, right now we're dealing with a lot of death, right? But for many students, when they went off to college, they didn't get to say goodbye to a loved one. And that is really, really hard. It really impacts the most of their time in college. Have those heart-to-heart conversations. Don't leave anything unsaid right now, especially right now in COVID-19, and you're just like all in each other's faces. Have those conversations that are just going to be so meaningful. This is like the longest time we've ever had with with our families, right? Outside of maybe a vacation,
right.
and had this vacation be this long before. But this time we will look back on it when those loved ones who we are with right now are not with us. We'll remember this time that we spent together, because there's nothing more important than family. There's nothing more important than that. And that legacy that you
Absolutely.
build going off to college and building, that whatever it is you're trying to do to make an impact in the world, all of that helps that family. So, and if anything I can do to help with that process, I am here. Peachy and I are friends for life now, so I'll be in
Yes,
your
we are.
but I thank you for this. I hope this was helpful. Drop comments in the drop questions or comments in the chat, and we'll come back and answer and respond to them. But be well. Just be well, y'all.
Yes, and thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight. We'll definitely have Carol back to give us more nuggets, since we have an in the institutional industry right now. And we'll talk to you on the next College and Coins live chat. Thanks and good night.